what we know is that in many instances, Picasso painted aspects of the composition and then subsequently obliterated them and transformed them into other compositional elements. This was really part of his practice. In fact, he was quoted in an interview in the 1930s saying, my paintings are a sum of destructions. And so as a conservator, looking at this area where you can see other colors peeking through and you can see texture that doesn't relate to the final composition, I had a very strong feeling that there was something under there. If you look closely, you can see that there's this lingering ghost of the dog here. There's red paint showing through in areas. You can actually, if you look really closely, you can see the eyes here and the ears here. And you can see that in concealing it, he actually left the contour of the top of the head still visible there. So, here we go. I preloaded this because I had a feeling this is what you'd want. And so what we're seeing here is a false color image which visualizes the iron, mercury, and zinc components in the pigments. So it's important to point out that it's not a snapshot, it is a visualization. The colors are false except for the red bow around its neck. So we can see quite a bit about the quality of the fur and the gaze and the contours of the dog, but it is not a literal snapshot of what it would have looked like.
When we found out that there was, in fact, a dog underneath that brown form from this, earlier composition that Picasso had rendered, my goodness, that was surprising for me, at least. It completely changes how one would have encountered this picture. You would have seen this really quite adorable dog in the foreground, looking almost directly at the visitor with this, wonderful red bow. One can only speculate why Picasso would have concealed this, but certainly now my eye is drawn to all these wonderful figures in the composition. So no longer is the dog there to kind of monopolize our view, but really I see the swishing of the skirts, I see the glint of the buckles, the top hats, all of this wonderful collection of patrons in this dance hall. So this is a painting we've had hanging here at the museum since 1965. I've often walked by it in the galleries, spent time with it, close looking. Never in my wildest dreams did I anticipate that there were so many fascinating compositional changes that this painting underwent, particularly with that brown form in the lower foreground of the painting. I think our recent conservation treatment has simply transformed the picture, brought it back to life.
So this area here, this figure here has been cleaned, and this section off to the right has not yet been cleaned. And you're seeing that this sort of dulling and homogenizing influence of that layer of grime. Well, it's very timely. We think it's a King Charles Spaniel. So, there were lots of them at the coronation. But we think that it looks like some kind of a king, maybe a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. But what's interesting is that he in obscuring it, it was just a few hasty brush strokes. And so he did kind of leave a ghostly presence of the dog there, which was so often his practice later in life. This is a very early instance of our seeing that kind of practice in Picasso, where he kind of hastily conceals or transforms an element from an earlier composition into a new form.